Recording in progress.
It was good. My grandchild and my daughter.
I'm ready.
You ready? Okay. Good evening. I would like to welcome Father Reggie with St. Aidan's Episcopal Church, who will lead us in tonight's invocation.
The Lord be with you.
Also with you.
Let us pray. Oh God, you have bound us together in a common life. Help us in the midst of our struggles for justice and truth to confront one another without hatred nor bitterness, and to work together here in this place with mutual forbearance and respect for one another through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Father Reggie. I would like to call the regular meeting of the Milton City Council for Monday, June 6, 2022 to order. The city strongly recommends that you review tonight's agenda carefully, and if you wish to speak on any agenda on the item, then please bring your comment cards to the clerk as soon as possible. While the Milton rules allow a speaker to turn in their comment card up until the clerk calls the agenda item, once the agenda item is called, no more comment cards can be accepted. Will the city clerk please call the roll and make general announcements?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'll be happy to call roll for the June 6, 2022 regular meeting. I would like to remind those in attendance to please silence all cell phones at this time. Those attending the meeting who would like to make a public comment, you are required to complete a public comment card prior to speaking on the item. Your comment card must be presented to me, the city clerk, prior to the agenda item being called. All speakers, please identify yourself with name, address, and organization before beginning your comment. If you are representing an organization, you are required to complete an affidavit stating you have the authority to speak on behalf of that organization. Please review tonight's agenda, and if you would like to make a public comment, please bring your public comment card to me now. Demonstration of any sort within the chamber is prohibited. Please refrain from any applause, cheering, booing, outburst, or dialogue with any person speaking. Anyone in violation will be asked to leave. As I call roll this evening, please confirm your attendance. Mayor Peyton Jamison.
Here.
Councilmember Andrea Bierhoff.
Here.
Councilmember Paul Moore.
Here.
Councilmember Juliette Johnson.
Here.
Councilmember Jan Jacobus.
Here.
And Councilmember Rick Morg.
Here.
And for the record, Councilmember Carol Cookley is absent tonight. Would everyone please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Will the city clerk please say on the next item?
Mayor, that next item is approval of the meeting agenda. It's agenda item number 22172. Mayor?
Yes, council, I would like to move new business agenda item number 22-188 and agenda item number 22-189 in that order, up to immediately follow the consent agenda. I'd like to open it for a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion that we adjust the agenda as read.
Okay, I have a motion from Councilmember Moore and a second from Councilmember Morg to approve the meeting agenda as amended. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That's unanimous. Okay, next is general public comment. Is there any general public comment?
Mayor, we do have one.
Okay. The next item is general public comment. Public comment is a time for citizens to share information with the mayor and the city council and to provide input and opinions on any matter that is not scheduled for its own public hearing during today's meeting. Each citizen who chooses to participate in public comment must complete a comment card and submit it to the city clerk prior to the agenda item being called. Please remember that this is not a time to engage the mayor or members of the city council in conversation. When your name is called, please come forward and speak into the microphone, stating your name and address for the record. You will have 5 minutes for remarks. The city encourages you to review the agenda, and if you wish to speak, to bring your comment cards to the city clerk right now. So
Mayor,
please
I'd
call the
like-
first person.
Sure, thank you. I'd like to invite Miss Mary Cronk to the podium, please. And you'll just pull that up, yeah. You can push it all the way up. Yeah, all the way. All the way.
Good evening, Mayor, Council, and staff. My name is Mary Cronk, and I live at 600 Hickory Mill Lane in Milton. My comments this evening are about agenda item 22-184, which would be the special event permits. Thank you, staff, for the diligent work that you're putting into section 34-25, those revisions. And I ask for your patience and understanding if I mention something that you may have already revised. Council, you're being asked more and more often to make decisions that impact the delicate balance between encouraging and growing business in Milton, fostering a greater sense of community, and really looking at residents' rights to peacefully enjoy their homes. And the special events permit, I believe, falls within this realm and really goes to what is an acceptable intensity of use in a residential area. I had the opportunity to listen to your council work session back in January when staff solicited feedback, and I may be mentioning some of those comments in my comments this evening. The first area that I think really impacts intensity of use, you guys see this.
Hey, Ms. Cronk, really quick, I might want to ask the city attorney, are we talking specifically about the use permit that we have a hearing on tonight? Because I think,
A first presentation item, so I believe those comments are in order.
okay, there you go. Go ahead.
Thank you. So the first area that really impacts the intensity of use is built around the number of attendees that would trigger the need for a special events permit. And under this new proposed section, special event permit would be needed if the event is reasonably expected to result in more than 100 people gathering at any one time. So let's consider a scenario and whether it would trigger a need for a special event permit. The applicant has an event that starts at 9 a.m. and ends at 5 p.m. They expect they'll only have 90 people gathered at any one time, but people will be coming and going throughout the day so that over an 8-hour period, 300 or more people will be attending. So if I were the applicant and I'm looking at the verbiage for this currently, I would not apply for a special event permit because I'm not exceeding the threshold of 100 people at any one time. And because the attendance level is a primary criteria, the next two lines where it talks about substantial impact on public services, substantial impact on public safety, those wouldn't even be considered. So there would be no need for that special event permit. Unintentionally, we could wind up with an event that could put a substantial burden on public safety and public services, and local residents would know nothing about it. To prevent this, I respectfully ask council to consider adding some verbiage that puts kind of that limit at the total number of attendees that would trigger a special event permit and not just have the minimum of 100 at any given time. I don't think that that's a fair assessment. The second area that impacts that intensity of use would be the number of special event permits that are issued per calendar year per location, with outdoor auditoriums going from the current number of 2 to the proposed number of 12. And on this one, I would add on that 1A that we need to add per location on there to make it clear that that's not just an applicant, but it's per location. I believe that 12 special events would be too intense. And the reason I think this is due to number 3, that no issued permit shall be effective for more than 3 consecutive days for a single event on the same property. So what does that translate to in terms of usage of an outdoor auditorium and the impact on the residents who live nearby?
1 minute.
If I'm interpreting this correctly, which I apologize if I'm not, if a location is given 12 special event permits each year, and each event can be 3 days long, a single location could have 36 days of special events in a calendar year as this verbiage is written currently, unless I'm wrong, and I want to know if I am. One of our council members at the January 10 work session expressed concern that we could have 7 days of special events, could have a whole week of it. If this verbiage is accepted, we could have the whole month of July and 5 days into August, special events every day. The way it's written, you could stack those special events one on top of another. So I really would ask, I know I have no time left, really would ask council, I know tonight is a first presentation, but I would ask you to really think very carefully about the verbiage and what we can do to make this something that works for both the community, businesses, and respects the rights of our citizens. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Any other public comment?
No, sir.
Okay. So we'll close the public comment and we will move on to the consent agenda. Will the city clerk please sound the items?
Mayor, that first item A is approval of the May 16, 2022 regular city council meeting minutes. It's agenda item number 22173. B is approval of a joint defense agreement and conflict waiver between Milton, Alpharetta, and Gerard and Davis, LLP. Agenda item number 22174. Item C is approval of a water vault easement between the City of Milton and Fulton County, allowing water vault access at Milton Fire Station number 42 to perform maintenance and repairs on the water vault structure, water meter, and appurtenances on both a routine and emergency basis. It's agenda item number 22175. Item D, approval of a construction services agreement between the City of Milton and Prime Contractors, Inc. for the refurbishment of City Crabapple area wayfinding signs. It's agenda item number 22176. Item E is approval of a change order number 2 with CHA Consulting, Inc. for design of Freemanville Road at Birmingham Road intersection improvements. Agenda item number 22177. Item F is approval of a professional services agreement between the City of Milton and Reddish Executive Search Associates, LLC. They're doing business as Mercer Group Associates to provide executive search services for the position of Human Resource Director. Agenda item number 22178. Item G is approval of a professional services agreement between the City of Milton and Reddish Executive Search Associates, doing business as Mercer Group Associates, to provide executive search services for the position of Finance Director. Agenda item number 22179. H is approval of a construction services agreement with Buckeye Land Management, Inc. for Birmingham Park and Birmingham Road at Freemanville Road and green space equestrian parking improvements and public works yard fencing. Agenda item number 22180. Item I is approval of change order number 2 between the City of Milton and Pencor LLC to amend the agreement by adding additional services for the renovations of Milton City Park and Preserve. Agenda item number 22181. Item J, approval of subdivision plats and revisions. The first development is Ashbrook Farms, large lots on Freemanville Road, land lot 554 and 555, District 2, Section 2. It is a minor plat revision, and the plat will supersede the previously recorded plat from Ashbrook Farms dated April the 30th in 2008. This plat revision is to revise the lot lines for lots 2 and 3 and the entrance from Freemanville Road. It's a total of 12.126 acres with a density of 0.25 lots per acre. The second development is Moongate Manor on Birmingham Road and Henderson Road. It's land lot 388 and 405, District 2, Section 2. It is a minor plat to subdivide the parcel into 3 tracts ranging in size from 1.43 acres to 6.70 acres, a total of 9.77 acres, and a density of 0.31 lots per acre. Agenda item number 22182. Our final consent item K is approval of a software subscription agreement between the City of Milton and Interactive Data LLC for investigative software. Agenda item number 22183. Mayor Jamison?
Thank you. Do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I'd like to make a motion that we approve the consent agenda as read.
Second?
Okay, have a motion from Councilmember Jacobus and a second from Councilmember Moore. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That is unanimous. We'll move on to new business, and we'll move on to the new business items that are being moved up on the agenda. Will the city clerk please sound the first item?
Mayor, that item is consideration of a resolution appointing or reappointing a member to the City of Milton Parks and Recreation Advisory Board by appointing a board member at large. It's agenda item number 22188. Mayor?
Thank you. My current Parks and Board member is moving to sunny Florida, and I had this opportunity to move Stephanie Butler from the Planning Commission over to the Parks and Rec Board. I've known Stephanie for a very, very long time. She's been a longtime resident of the city of Milton. She has 3 kids who have been very active in youth sports. She served as president of the North Atlanta Football League and will do an amazing job. And I ask for y'all's support. And I would like to open it for a motion if y'all don't have any dissent on that.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion that we approve Stephanie Butler as your new appointee.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion from Councilmember Moore and a second from Councilmember Moore to appoint Stephanie Butler to the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board for the at-large appointment. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That's unanimous. So Stephanie, I'll come swear you in and then we'll take a picture. So you've been on Board of Zoning Appeals, you've been on Planning Commission, now Parks and Rec, so.
Does that make mayor next?
That might be. I do solemnly swear and affirm that I will faithfully perform the duties of Parks and Recreation Advisory Board member of this city, that I will support and defend the charter thereof, as well as the Constitution and laws of the state of Georgia.
Need to keep. Thank you very much. Perfect. Yes, we can get one with council.
Come on down, take a road trip.
The cheese. Yeah. Stephanie.
So,
It's,
Yeah.
I watched the list.
Okay, will the city clerk please sound the next item?
Mayor, that next moved up item under new business is the consideration of the adoption of the North Fulton Community Improvement District to expand the boundaries of our district. It is agenda item number 22189. Mr. Kirkhoff, and I believe we have Mr. Beach here. Please.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Thank you for having me. My name is Brandon Beach, 3100 Briarfield, Alpharetta, 3004. I also am Executive Director of the North Fulton CID. We've had a great relationship with you guys, and we're in our 19th year since we founded the CID. I was one of the founders, and we had made the decision early on that we were not going to raise our millage rate. Most CIDs are at 5 mills. We're at 3 mills. And for those of you that are new that don't know what a CID is, it's a community improvement district. We get boundaries. We have members, but they're all commercial, no private citizens, all commercial tax-based district. And what we do is then take that money, and we have a board of directors, and we do engineering, environmental, right-of-way, anything to get a project, what we call shovel-ready. And we've been very fortunate in our 19 years. We've had about $32 million worth of money come in, and we've done about $145 million worth of projects. Our first project that we were founded for was the West Side Parkway from Mansell Road all the way to Windward, which has been a great addition to our community. Anyway, we made the decision we did not want to raise taxes. The way we were going to grow our CID was twofold. One, through property values rising, which has happened, and two was through expansion. And so we've expanded both east-west, and we've expanded all the way to the Forsyth County line, and now we're expanding southbound. You do not have any properties in this expansion. We've got 15 new properties that are going to join. It's been certified by Dr. Ferdinand at Fulton County. It's also been approved by the Fulton County Commission. But the law also states that each city has to approve it, even if you don't have any properties that are being expanded within this resolution. You are a member of the CID as a municipality, and you have to approve it. So Alpharetta's approving it tonight. You guys are approving it. And then when this approval's done, we've approved it as a board. So then our board has approved it. So then we can start collecting the tax money April 1st. This will bring in about $105,000 worth of new tax revenue to the CID, so we can continue to build roads, bridges, infrastructure, and add value to the properties within the CID and really help the whole community. And that's what our overall goal is. So I would ask for your support in this and would take any questions. I will tell you that we met, just on another note, we met with Verizon on Thursday of last week, Verizon Wireless, and that would be about a $65,000 increase. And that is all in the city of Milton. And we've already got $30,000 for the next one. So we'll be back in about 6 months with another expansion. Alex Battle, I've hired him to do nothing but expansion, and he's done a great job. And we're going to continue to expand our boundaries to grow the CID. The other thing I would just like to mention, Mayor, you were at the meeting, and I'm sure you've probably shared this with the council. There's going to be infrastructure money coming down from Washington, and it's going to bypass GDOT, which is very unusual, and come straight to cities and counties. And our CID was very proactive. We set aside $200,000 for the city of Milton. So if you do have a project that's ready and you do get that infrastructure money from Washington, we're going to help you meet the match with that $200,000. So we did $200,000 for you, $200,000 for Alpharetta, $200,000 for Roswell, and $200,000 for Fulton County. Mayor, you were at that meeting. So we did a total of $800,000 to help these municipalities meet their match. We want to help you. We look at you guys as a partner. We really couldn't do it without you, and we're here to help you and help you on your infrastructure and whatever we can do to help. So with that, I'll answer any questions, but the CID is a very, very good thing.
Absolutely. Thank you, Senator. Any questions for Senator Beach?
No, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you all
thank
for
you.
what you're doing. I'd ask for your approval of this resolution. Thank you
Appreciate
very much.
Thank you. Do we have any public comment on this?
We do not, Mayor.
Okay, so I'll close public comment and I will open it for a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion that we approve the resolution as presented by Senator Brandon Beach this evening for the benefit of Milton CID.
Second.
All right, I had a motion from Councilmember Moore and a second from Councilmember Johnson to approve agenda item number 22-189. Is there any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That's unanimous. Thank you. So there are no reports and presentation items, so we'll move on to first presentations. Will the city clerk please say on the first item?
Thank you, Mayor. That item is consideration of an ordinance to amend Chapter 34, Parks, Recreation, and Cultural Affairs, and Appendix A of the Milton Code of Ordinances to establish Article 3, Cultural Affairs Section, create Section 34 through 25, event, special indoor, outdoor, and approve associated fees. It's agenda item number 22184. Item B is consideration of an ordinance of the mayor and council of the city of Milton, Georgia, to adopt amendments to the fiscal year 2022 budget for each fund of the city of Milton, Georgia, amending the amount shown in each budget as expenditures, amending the several items of revenue anticipations, prohibiting expenditures to exceed appropriations, and prohibiting expenditures to exceed actual funding available. It is agenda item number 22185. Mayor Jameson?
Okay, thank you. Do we have a motion for the first presentation items?
Mr. Mayor, I'll make a motion that we approve the first presentation items as read.
Okay, I have a motion from Councilmember Morgan, a second from Councilmember Jacobus to approve the first presentation items as read. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That's unanimous. So we will move on to our public hearing.
Mayor, item A is consideration of the 2017 through 2022 Transportation Special Purpose Local Option Sales Tax, known as TSPOS 1, Program Update and Modifications. Agenda item number 22186. To present is our Public Works Director, it's Rob Dole. Isn't she pretty? Robert Delross is here.
Thank you, Tammy. Good evening, everyone. Just give me 1 second while the presentation comes up. Tonight, item is for two reasons. This is a presentation that many of you saw back in October. The primary reason for the public hearing tonight is to provide you updated financial numbers on TSPOS 1 projects, as well as discuss Windward Parkway, which is a Tier 1 project that I'll get into in 1 second. This is a number you haven't seen yet. Our collections for TSPOS 1 are completely done at this point. We have received 60 of 60 monthly distributions. Our total project revenue, as you see on the screen, is $33.98 million. That is what we will be using to construct the remainder of the TSPOS 1 program. As you'll see later, we are in good shape. We still have estimates. We still have projects set to construct, but our numbers are looking good. Another reminder, 33.98 does not include a small amount of interest that it is growing each year. This map you've seen before. This is what the city has accomplished since it was incorporated in 2007. So everything you see in pink is TSPOS 1 program. You'll see several intersections, several bridges. The dark blue key are federal and state funded projects that have already been constructed from 2007 to present. The teal, the light blue color are federal, state, and projects that are currently either under design or under right-of-way right now that will be starting construction probably likely in the next several years. Then the green key are projects that are locally funded that have been constructed since 2007, most notably some roundabouts, projects using local money. This slide shows you the entire TSPOS 1 program. This was our project list that you adopted in 2017. That was your direction to staff to implement. So we grouped these projects in 3 tiers, Tier 1, Tier 2, Tier 3. Tier 1 was 85% of the projected revenue at the time, totaling $31.4 million. Tier 2 was the remaining 15%, 5.5. Tier 3 was if revenue came in above 100%, you wanted to put projects into Tier 3. So the primary purpose for the public hearing tonight is to talk about one project in Tier 1, most notably the Windward Parkway project. The intent on Windward Parkway was led by Alpharetta, starting in 2017 with a small 25% contribution for frontage that lives in Milton. There was thought to do updated bike and ped improvements along the entirety of Windward Parkway from State Route 9 all the way past 400 to North Point Parkway. During that progress, here's a map showing you that. As preliminary engineering and concept design kicked off by Alpharetta, they discovered that their estimate for the right-of-way cost and the construction cost of that entire project you see on the screen, the yellow segment plus the dashed blue lines, far exceeded the funding budgeted by Alpharetta and by Milton. So there was a decision made approximately 4 years ago that in order to bring the project in under budget, the yellow piece would be removed from the project, and the light blue segments you see on the screen would move forward through design and right-of-way and construction. And ultimately, if any of you have been out there recently, you've seen the new triple Fs coming off of 400. These projects actually already have been constructed. We're having a public hearing tonight basically to disclose that there is this tier 1 project sitting on Milton's project list that had the yellow portion been built, we would have contributed to it. But because the yellow portion has been removed from the scope by Alpharetta, we will not be contributing any money towards Windward Parkway. Next portion of the slide, these are pictures you've seen before. This just basically breaks our T+1 program into buckets for congestion relief, showing you expenditures to date. Morris Webb has been constructed for a while now. Morris Road widening is in right-of-way acquisition, and Northeast Crabapple is also constructed. So of our congestion relief bucket, we've spent $4.3 million, and we're estimating to spend another 10 as Morris moves forward. Operations and safety bucket, expenditures, primarily intersections and roundabouts. Freemanville at Birmingham, we're getting ready to wrap up on right-of-way acquisition. Hopewell Bethany is under construction. Hopewell Hamby, Hopewell Thompson are complete now, and 148 Green is still a discussion with Georgia DOT. So in that bucket, we've spent about half, 5.8 million, with, based on estimates, about 5.7 million remaining. Bridges on T-Splosh Tier 1, there's only one project. That's Birmingham Middle Bridge. We are still under design on that. We should be starting right-of-way acquisition this summer. And the bicycle and pedestrian bucket, projects and expenditures, Cogburn Sidewalk and the Trail Master Plan are complete. 257K is our contribution towards the Big Creek Greenway extension, as well as the Mayfield Sidewalk that we have started design on, and we're going to be going into right-of-way acquisition. So in that 1.8, we've spent approximately 900 with about 900 left. The good news is for our financials that we're actually spending and starting some tier 2 projects in T+1, which not a lot of cities can say. We have, as you know, started design on Bethany at Providence. We're waiting on Freemanville Red. We intend on bringing that back to you later this year. So we have spent a small amount, about $3 million. Summary of what you just see in this on the slides. To date, we've spent approximately $11.6 million based on estimates totaling 34.4, remaining approximately $22.7 million, with actual revenues at $34 million. So what that tells you is we're in good shape. We still have a lot of work to do. We still have a lot of variables out there. Estimates for Morris widening, right-of-way and construction, our bids on Freemanville at Birmingham, our bids on Birmingham Bridge. Those are some big numbers that we're going to be tracking over time. We are likely going to hit a point where T+1 money will run out. Sarah and I doubt that we will be able to construct all 7 of those projects on the screen using T+1 money, but there's nothing wrong with that. At some point, that T+1 money will complete, and T+2 money, which started collections a couple of months ago, will kick in seamlessly and continue moving all of these projects forward. That concludes my presentation. I'm here for any questions you may have.
Any questions? We have any public comment?
We do not, Mayor.
Okay. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. So we will move on to the next item.
Mayor, that next item is consideration of an ordinance of the mayor and council of the city of Milton, Georgia, to adopt amendments to the fiscal year 2022 budget for each fund of the city of Milton, Georgia, amending the amount shown in each budget as expenditures.
Tammy, I think we
Oh,
got,
sorry.
you
Let's
skipped
back
one.
up. Oh, I did. I'm sorry. I know we all love budget. We do. But not as much as we love Mondos. Consideration of the issuance of an alcohol beverage license to Matthias Restaurant LLC, doing business as Mondo Italian Kitchen at 14155 Highway 9 North, Suite 500, Milton, Georgia, 3004. It's agenda item number 22187.
Good
Bernadette?
evening, Mayor and Council. This evening before you have an alcohol beverage license application for Mondo Italian Kitchen. This is due to a change of ownership. They are located at 14155 Highway 9 North at Suite 500. This would be for the consumption on premises of beer, wine, and distilled spirits. At this time, an application for Sunday sales was not submitted. You can see the signage out front that was in compliance. Mondo Italian Kitchen does qualify as a full-service restaurant with the 40% of their gross square footage of the restaurant facility being dedicated to seating. They also qualify as an eating establishment where they derive a minimum of 50% of their total annual gross food and beverage sales from the sale of prepared food and meals, per their affidavit submitted with their application. And just for a reference point, this is where they're located on Highway 9 North in reference to the other establishments that sell alcohol a little further south down Highway 9. If you have any questions, I'm here to answer them, and we'll do a vote later this evening for this application.
Any questions for Bernadette? Okay, any public comment?
There are none.
All right, we'll close the public hearing and see you a little later, Bernadette.
Thank you.
Actually, you're going to stay right there.
Actually, just wait now.
You'll please call the next item, Tammy.
Now we're ready for consideration of an ordinance of the mayor and council of the city of Milton, Georgia, to adopt amendments to the fiscal year 2022 budget for each fund of the city of Milton, Georgia, amending the amount shown in each budget as expenditures, amending the several items of revenue anticipations, prohibiting expenditures to exceed appropriations, and prohibiting expenditures to exceed actual funding available. It is agenda item number 22185. Assistant City Manager, Ms. Bernadette Harville.
All right, Mayor and Council, I appreciate your time this evening as we're here to discuss the proposed amendments to the fiscal year 2022 budget. The budget for this fiscal year was approved on September 20th, 2021, and the amendments before you represent adjustments resulting from current circumstances, opportunities, and recommendations. Before you is the general fund budget summary. You will see the original anticipated revenues for fiscal year 2022 at $34.8 million. There is an increase of $12.6 million in projected revenues being proposed, which will result in $47.5 million in general fund revenues for fiscal year 2022. I will go over the revenue adjustments in detail in just a moment, but I would like to point out one significant adjustment here in the interfund transfers in from other funds section in the amount of $10,134,298. The substantial portion of which is $10 million from the ARPA fund to recognize the allowable figure dedicated to lost revenue, as explained by Deputy City Manager Inglis in her presentation last month. This $10 million may be used to cover expenses associated with traditional services provided by the government. Moving down to the expenditure summary. There, so you can see it. There we go. You will see the original FY 2022 budget at $35.9 million with a proposed amendment in the amount of $13.4 million, which will result in an overall expenditure budget of $49.3 million. Of this $13.4 million request, $12.9 million will be transferred out to the Capital Projects Fund to support the city's pay-as-you-go capital improvement plan. We will go over the details of that transfer later in this presentation. The projected general fund balance of $10,588,144 will put the city well within its required fund balance requirements of 25% of the subsequent year's revenues. Does anyone have any questions before I go on to the details of the revenues? Okay, excellent. At this time, I'd like to go over on the more significant changes to anticipated revenues for fiscal year 2022, but again, I'll answer any questions you may have about some of the other line items. There is a request to increase the title ad valorem tax category. Title ad valorem tax is the amount you pay when you purchase a new vehicle, and it continues to come in higher than we anticipated as a result. We are forecasting an additional $600,000 in revenues for this category. Another revenue source that has grown faster than expected is local option sales tax. You will see a request for an increase to this line item in the amount of $1 million. Land disturbance permits and plan review fees have also come in higher than we anticipated, and corresponding increases in the amount of $250,000 and $106,093 have been forecasted for the remainder of this fiscal year. Take a moment to review that. Finally, I would like to mention once again the $10 million in ARPA funds that the city received being transferred into the general fund to recognize the revenue loss calculation allowable by the program guidance. The transfer in from the operating grant fund in the amount of $103,479 is to recognize the grant revenue received for the State of Georgia Public Safety Officials and First Responder Supplement Grant Program, which was paid to eligible employees earlier this year. Again, the total amendment request for revenues adds up to $12,628,840. And before we move on to the revenue or the expenditure section, I'll pause here if you have any questions. Okay, excellent. Within this amendment document, the proposed staffing changes are outlined, amendment changes are outlined in detail on pages 9 through 12. The initial request pertains to a reorganization within the finance department. This request involves reclassifications, including changing the vacant financial services administrator position to that of finance director and requesting a part-time accounts payable coordinator. For fiscal year 2022, the amendment ask is $15,000, and the annual impact moving forward would be $82,393 to make these changes within the finance department. As you will recall, we had a rate structure change to our legal agreement back in January. As a result, we are requesting $50,000 to cover the corresponding increases we're seeing in the professional fees account for legal. Next, you'll see a request to transfer $104,353 from community outreach and engagement to Parks and Recreation. This is due to an internal reorganization, moving the community outreach manager, part-time special events coordinator, and 2 summer interns to the Parks and Recreation department. Municipal Court is in the process of implementing eCourt as part of their local contract for a system to process all ticketing. This has come in higher than anticipated, and the department is requesting $21,030 to cover those expenses. Additionally, the current IGA with the City of Alpharetta now includes a shared full-time solicitor. The request of $25,160 will go to cover the expenses associated with that change through the end of September. The police department has a request of $39,574 to cover salary expenses covered by that public safety officials and first responder supplement grant we spoke about earlier. They're also recognizing revenues related to the Milton First Responders grant they received in the amount of $3,239, as well as insurance proceeds in the amount of $1,145. Additionally, we are moving $20,253 from the Capital Projects Fund to address camera systems that were originally budgeted with the new vehicle request in the Capital Projects Fund, so you'll see that again later, as well as through the transfer. There is a request for $12,400 for office desks for the new traffic officers, and that closes out the request for the police department. Within fire, there's a $63,905 request, again for salaries to cover the portion of fire's public safety officials and first responders grant. There is also a request for 2 new paramedics, one for a shift firefighter and 1 paramedic to oversee the CARES program. Details of that request are included in the packet. I won't go into that this evening unless you'd like to have further information on that. The request for FY22 would be $81,374 with an annual impact of $163,489 for a full year of those 2 firefighters. Fire also incurred unanticipated expenses in the amount of $170,040 related to the professional fees to remediate the mold detected at Fire Station 41. And they're also recognizing $10,000 for a wellness grant the city received that will be used to provide training equipment for the department. On the next page, we have Public Works. You will see an increase across salaries, purchase services, supplies, and other costs associated with an internal reorganization, bringing the sustainability position from community development over to Public Works. The new position will be the environmental projects manager, and this request totals $100,094. There is also a request to reallocate $24,700 from fiscal year 2021, as the local road safety plan expenses were not incurred until this fiscal year. They were approved last year, and this is just a reallocation of them into this year's budget. There's also a request for $18,415 from the Capital Projects Fund to address road striping. The LMIG SAP program was applied to the traffic calming account in that fund, and we're just moving over the recognition of those extra revenues to cover some striping costs this year. Lastly, there is a recognition of insurance proceeds in the amount of $12,632 for repairs of damaged property covered by insurance. In Parks and Recreation, there is a request to accept the budget for the positions being transferred from Community Outreach and Engagement, as well as a request for contingency funds in the amount of $132,850 to cover contracted prices that came in higher than anticipated for the mowing contract that was in progress when the budget was set last year. The last item on this page is the removal of the budget for the sustainability position from Community Development in order to transfer it over to Public Works. On the next page, we have the detailed explanation of the $12.9 million transfer out from the general fund to the capital projects fund, which includes the following: $282,550 that will go towards addressing Tier 1 Trail Master Plan projects at Birmingham Park, $53,552 for the purchase of 3 new HVAC units at Fire Station 41, also associated with the mold remediation process, $214,611 for construction-related expenses that exceeded the bond proceeds available for reconstruction of Fire Station 42 due to some inflationary costs that we were seeing, $170,000 for the furniture, fixtures, and equipment that will go to outfit that building once it's completed, $21,300 for perimeter fencing at the public safety complex, $231,700 for the replacement of fire's cardiac monitors, $12 million for the build-out of the new athletic complex once the site is secured. Again, that includes the ability to use that money now that we have the $10 million from the ARPA funds to cover other costs we're incurring in the general fund. This is all offset by that reduction of $18,415 for the road striping and the $20,253 for the camera system that we're going to see coming in from the capital projects fund. There's also a request to reduce the operating transfer out to the special events fund, as hotel motel tax revenues are coming in higher than we have anticipated, which is a great news for our hotel, rebounding. And finally, we have the request from contingency in the amount of $182,850 to offset those legal and mowing expenses that we incurred higher than we anticipated. That brings us to a close. Again, a net change of a reduction of $796,770 to the general fund. And I'll be happy to answer any questions as we move on to the special revenue funds in a moment.
Thanks,
Everyone's
Bernadette.
still with me? Oh, no, hold
Oh,
on.
you're not done? Oh, okay.
We're on page 12 of 33, Mayor.
Oh, okay.
I'm done with the general fund.
Ask for questions. I was ready to go.
I just want to make sure that I give you a good break before we move on to the next set of funds.
Got it.
All right, so we'll move on now. So here we have the special revenue funds, and the first one we have is our special events fund. And staff has implemented a fee associated with applications and the provision of tents and booths for the Crabapple Fest. And you'll see a recognition of those revenues as well as the distribution of those towards the expenses associated with the rental of those tents and other professional fees for the event. You will also see the reduction to the transfer in from the general fund to offset those additional hotel motel tax revenues that we're seeing. Again, in the hotel motel tax fund, you see the exact same change, recognizing the revenues and moving them out to the special events fund. The confiscated assets fund, we are allocating a budget from the fund balance to purchase restricted items that are allowable in this account. That is how we do that. We don't presuppose anything in this account. Once PD has identified eligible items, we then take the revenues that are within that fund and allocate them towards that budget. The E911 funds are coming in higher than anticipated, and we are recognizing that increase as well as an adjusted increase to the associated expense account. Please recall that under the current IGA, 100% of these fees that we collect are transferred to the city of Alpharetta to support Milton's share of the E911 center and its dispatchers. We've already discussed the state of Georgia public safety officials and first responder supplement grant earlier in the general fund segment. This is the budget adjustment to recognize the actual revenues coming in from the state and the transfer out of those over to the general fund, as well as recognizing the CJCC grant the police were awarded. This covers 100% of their expenses associated with equipment and training for their de-escalation program that they're implementing. And again, some of those were originally expected to incur in 2021, and we're just allocating them in 2022, so that's when the expenses actually occurred. The ARPA fund, again, we're recognizing the $10 million at this time in the revenue shortfall calculation that we are authorized. We're moving those over to the general fund. We have also earmarked the $638,800 that were approved by council for the premium pay. And once we have the actual cost per department, those will be moved over and allocated as well. So that is all in motion. Does anyone have any questions? As that is the end of the special revenue funds. We're still got the capital funds, but I'll stop there for a moment. The first one we have is our capital projects fund. Before you are the revenue amendments for the capital projects fund, including the $12.9 million operating transfer in from the general fund. Here we have the allocation of those funds as well as some of the revenues from the capital funds across expenditure accounts. We have a budget request for $21,300 for perimeter fencing at the public safety complex that we talked about. A net reduction of $7,543 from the vehicle replacement reserve for police related to recognizing insurance proceeds, which are offset by the request to move that money for the camera systems back over to the general fund. A request of $384,611 to cover both the FF&E, which is the furniture, fixtures, and equipment, and the additional construction costs for Fire Station 42 that we spoke about earlier. The budget for the HVAC systems, the $231,700 for the cardiac monitors for fire, as well as $290,550 towards pavement management to recognize infrastructure maintenance taxes and landfill use fees that were received in excess of what was expected last year as well as this year, and also some funding to address some inflationary costs associated with asphalt prices. That's right down there at the bottom. Hang in with me, we're almost done. We're also discussed that transfer out of $18,415 to cover the striping out of the traffic calming account as we put the grant money back into the traffic calming account, freeing it up to be able to be moved over for the striping. We've got the $12 million to go towards the build out of the new athletic complex. And again, this is possible due to the ability of Milton collecting those ARPA funds. So we'll be able to fund this sooner than we would with our traditional pay-as-you-go program. There's a request for $331,250 from Public Works again to begin those Tier 1 master plan projects over at Birmingham Park. Some of that funding will also come from the completion of the comprehensive plan, moving the $48,700 that remain in that account back up over to Birmingham Park to address some of those Tier 1 projects. We're recognizing $1,755 for true recompense money collected, and then again, offsetting some of the expenses we've seen through contingency. On to the T-SPLOST fund. As Rob Del Ross explained earlier, T-SPLOST 1 is the actual revenues received have come to a close. So we're recognizing that by creating a new account for T-SPLOST 2, so we can clearly identify and transparently show what we're collecting for that round as opposed to the first round. And then in the expenditure section, we're just showing an allocation of that money across the first 3 projects that Public Works has identified: the Bethany Bend pedestrian crossing, pavement management, as well as intersection improvements at Cox Road. And we were able to have a savings in the Northeast Crabapple Connector project due to donated right-of-way, which was a wonderful savings for the city, just releasing those funds back out to some other projects. A lot of the information you heard this evening, we'll be making some internal budget amendments as they're within the same fund in the same department. We can do that internally and just reallocate them funds across the T-SPLOST 1 remaining projects. Here we have the capital grant fund. In the capital grant fund, we are recognizing a decrease in LMIG funds received for FY 2022, as well as minor cleanup of the Smart Communities Challenge program and the Providence Park grant accounts. Once council weighs in on the bathrooms at Providence Park, we will finish the amendments necessary for that project. We have the impact fees fund. Again, impact fees are coming in fortunately higher than we anticipated, both in 21 and 22. This is a recognition of the higher expectation for 2022. And here we have the allocation of those funds as well as the 2021 funds across the different eligible projects. And at the very bottom, you can see we've moved out the funding from the law enforcement account back over to the general fund. Early on in the project for the public safety complex, the general fund provided funding, and this is going to reimburse that for that. So part of that can go towards freeing up money to do that perimeter fencing we talked about earlier. And finally, last but not least, the revenue bond fund. We're recognizing interest revenues received to date and putting them towards the cost or increase at Fire Station 42 in the amount of $109,508. I'll be happy to answer any questions you have. Again, this is our public hearing, and we will vote on this on the 20th. So this is just, we'll go over it in a little shorter detail on the 20th. That's it for this evening.
Thanks, Bernadette. Any questions for Bernadette? Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it. So we will move on to the, well, first, do we have any public comment?
We do not, Mayor.
Okay, so I'll close the public comment. We'll move on to zoning agenda. Will the city clerk please read the zoning rules and then sound the first item?
Thank you, Mayor. When the mayor and city council consider zoning agenda, these items include rezoning petitions, modifications of zoning, use permits, and associated concurrent variances, in addition to ordinances, resolutions, and text amendments. I would like to acquaint you with the rules and procedures for this meeting, which includes a zoning agenda. The applicant and all those speaking in support of an application will be allowed a total of 10 minutes to present the petition. The opposition will also be allowed a total of 10 minutes to present its position. If time remains, the opposition will be allowed to rebut. The applicant may choose to save some of the time for rebuttal following the presentation by the opposition. Since the burden of proof is upon the applicant will be allowed to make closing remarks, provided time remains with the allotted time. Those called to speak will be taken in the order that the speaker cards were received by the city clerk prior to beginning tonight's meeting. All speakers identify themselves by name, address, and organization, and if applicable, before beginning their affidavit, if applicable, before beginning their presentation. The Planning Commission has heard the rezoning agenda items, and their recommendations have been forwarded to the mayor and city council for consideration and disposition. The applicant shall not submit material to the council during this meeting unless requested to do so. All material that you wish to be reviewed by the council in consideration of your application should have already been submitted to the Community Development Department and is included in the normal distribution of packages to the council. When an opponent of a rezoning action has made within 2 years immediately preceding the filing of the rezoning action being opposed, campaign contributions aggregating $250 or more to a local government official of the local government which will consider the application, it shall be the duty of the opponent to file a disclosure with the governing authority of the respective local government at least 5 days prior to the Planning Commission meeting. A violation of the relevant state statute constitutes a misdemeanor. Therefore, if you have contributed $250 or more to a council member and you have not filed a disclosure prior to the Planning Commission meeting, the city attorney strongly suggests that you have someone else speak for your point of view. Our first zoning item this evening is consideration of U22-02 to request a use permit for an indoor auditorium at section 64-1846 at 12630 Crabapple Road, Suite 340, Itasca Walk. It's by Itasca Walk, LLC. It is agenda item number 22161, and we have Robin McDonald here to present.
So, good evening, Mayor and City Council. So tonight, we're here to present a request by Itasca Walk LLC, represented by Josh Barnes. The subject site is on 0.493 acre. It's an existing use, 3-story mixed-use building, as you can see here on the picture to the right. Specifically, the 3rd story and this outdoor patio. And it's a request for a use permit for an indoor auditorium within a 2,895 square foot interior space and 900 square feet outdoor patio space. In general, this is the location along Crabapple Road, and it is this building right here. And then here's the new roundabout on the western end of Heritage Walk. It is located within the T5 Transect zone, and so this serves both as the zoning district as well as the future land use map of T5. I just want to clarify that when I speak about a Crabapple Market mixed-use development, everything in this amber color is what is considered the Crabapple Market area mixed use. Again, here would be the subject site, this building right here at Itasca Walk in Crabapple. And then this is just the site plan of the building where it's located. So the applicant plans to lease the rooftop to individuals or small groups that need meeting space for various types of organizations, business networking, or off-site team meetings. The original maximum requested occupancy was 190 people, but at the Planning Commission meeting held on April 27th, the applicant agreed to reduce the total number of persons, including any type of staff, to 120 per event. The applicant plans to operate it with existing Orkin employees within normal business hours as events are needed. At the Community Zoning Information Meeting on March 22nd, the applicant was present. There was no one in attendance regarding this item. At the Design Review Board on April 12th, 4 of the DRB members expressed support for the use and recommended approval of the use permit, and 1 member was not in support because of concerns of insufficient parking for the maximum allowed occupancy. The public participation report, which is required by our zoning ordinance, was held at the site on Thursday, April 7th at 6 p.m. There were between 8 and 12 attendees, and they toured the space and provided input. Everyone was supportive of the use. Continuing on to the Planning Commission meeting that occurred on April 27th, the Planning Commission recommended approval of the indoor auditorium as submitted by the applicant, except to limit the number of attendees to 120 instead of the requested 190 for each event in a vote of 3-2. There was discussion regarding the amount of parking available for the proposed venue. It was the opinion of some of the members that there was not enough parking available for this use. In regards to city staff comments, the arborist, public works department, and land development engineer had no comments based upon the fact that it's a building that already exists. The city fire marshal oversees the interior of the building where the proposed auditorium is located, has received its certificate of occupancy, and there are no additional comments. The environmental site analysis was submitted by the applicant, and there are no wetlands, floodplains, steep slopes, historical sites, or sensitive plant and animal species. So now we're going to go on to look at the site plan considerations, and the existing building meets all the development standards as required in the T5 transect zone. In regards to the actual use permit, let me just read you what the definition of it is, since it's a fairly new concept. It's a building or portion of a building for public rental for the purpose of private events, whether family, group, or corporate in nature, where access by the general public is restricted, and with or without the sale, serving, or consumption of food and or alcoholic beverages. An assembly hall, indoor auditorium shall not include a restaurant. So earlier this year, you all approved the use permit for this use. It's section 64-1846. On the left side is all the requirements, and on the right side column is I go through whether they comply with those requirements. So all of them are yes, including, I just want to point out, the days and hours of operation shall be limited to the following: Sunday through Thursday, 7 a.m. to 10 p.m., Friday and Saturday, 7 a.m. to 11 p.m. So the applicant has agreed to these days and times of operation. So let me skip down to the maximum number of attendees, number 4. So the way that this use permit was created was that we look at each situation on a case-by-case basis. So in this case, the applicant originally requested 190 attendees. And as I mentioned earlier in the presentation, at the Planning Commission, they offered to reduce it to 120. And at the Planning Commission, that's what the recommendation was by that body, was for 120 total, including any kind of staff. So basically, it complies with all the development standards for the use permit. So when we look at a use permit, there are a set of 10 considerations we need to look at from a staff viewpoint. And so I'm going to just step through those right now. The first one is the proposed development is in the T5 land use category of the City of Milton 2040 Comprehensive Plan map within the Crabapple Form-Based Code. The proposed use permit for an indoor auditorium is permitted within the T5 Transect Zone. In addition, the adopted 2040 comprehensive plan states that T5 Urban Center consists of higher density mixed-use building and accommodates retail, offices, row houses, and apartments, wide sidewalks, street plantings, and buildings close to sidewalks. Therefore, this proposed use is consistent with the land use plans adopted by the mayor and city council. Secondly, the subject site is compatible with the adjacent and nearby lands, uses, and zoning, which include a mix of retail offices, including both general and medical related services that include hair and nail salons, physical therapy, and a variety of restaurants. These uses are located within the T5 Transect Zone to the east and west of the subject site, as well as on the south side of Crabapple Road, also within the T5 Transect Zone. To the north is the T4 Open, are single-family residences as well as City Hall. Further to the south, on the south side of Crabapple, are residential uses with both townhomes and single-family residences. The proposed use does not appear to violate any ordinances or regulations governing land development. Since the streets and sidewalks already exist and were designed to accommodate the number and size of mixed-use buildings, there will be a minimal effect on the traffic flow, vehicular and pedestrian, along adjoining streets. Continuing on, speaking about street parking or off-street parking, the location of parking spaces is located within the entire mixed-use development, but the closest ones are just to the north within the Grove parking. So this is the subject site right here. And this is what the applicant calls out as being Grove parking just to the north of the building. And that contains 48 parking spaces. In addition, the two-story parking deck has 130 parking spaces available for use by the indoor auditorium. So this is the area of the two-level parking deck. Staff notes that larger events may occur in the evening or weekends. Below is the breakdown of the overall mixed use and required and parking and provided parking. So here is the total amount of commercial space of about approximately 150,000 square feet. And that would require 3.5 spaces per 1,000 square feet. We don't differentiate between either office or retail or restaurant. It's all basically averaged out to and required of 3.5 spaces per 1,000. So that calculation would come out to 524 required parking spaces, and the number of spaces provided is 532. So there are residential units that are amongst the mixed-use development, but because those are satisfied in garage spaces, it's not really applicable in this situation. So for a grand total, again, they provide 532 parking spaces out of the 524 required per the code. So there's not a specific required off-street parking ratio required for the indoor auditorium, but based on the chart below, it appears that there will be more than sufficient parking spaces available when the indoor auditorium may have the most attendees, which would not exceed 190 at the worst case scenario, if that was, if the city council decided to go for the higher number. This chart indicates that during the evening hours, there would be a surplus of 223 parking spaces. Therefore, there is adequate parking provided for the proposed use, especially if approved at the 120 max. So here we are, 5 to 10 p.m. The commercial space of active density, so basically that there would be restaurants and maybe some of the retailers that would be open, and they would require 309 parking spaces, but the development provides 532, so that's where the surplus of 223 come out to. Continuing on, the proposed use is within an existing building that is part of an overall mixed-use development that contains 8.88 acres that has provided the required minimum open space of 5% with a just under acre within the green located to the north of the building. The proposed use is an existing building that is part of an overall mixed-use development, and the form-based code does not require screening between uses and/or parcels in this area. As stated earlier, when I reviewed the use permit development standards, the hours and manner of operation are Sunday through Thursday, 7 a.m. to 10 p.m., and Friday and Saturday, 7 a.m. to 11 p.m. Outdoor lighting. The proposed use is an existing building that is part of an overall mixed-use development, which has been approved by the city through the land disturbance permit process, including required lighting on the site as the adjacent properties. Any additional lighting that may be used on the outdoor patio will need to meet the lighting requirements of Article 4.2 of the Crabapple Form-Based Code. The existing building is at the northwest corner of Crabapple Road and Itasca Walk. There is an existing full access onto Crabapple Road that provides sufficient access to the property. So in conclusion, the proposed indoor auditorium use permit is consistent with the City of Milton 2040 Comprehensive Plan and Map, and also consistent with the use permit considerations. Therefore, staff recommends approval conditional of U22-02. So the recommended conditions are pretty straightforward. 1A is restrict the use of the subject site to an indoor auditorium, restrict the total square footage of the indoor auditorium at 12630 Crabapple Road, Suite 320 to 2,895 square feet, including the 900 square foot outdoor patio. And then lastly, the original request of 190 attendees, and then I have in red what the Planning Commission recommended of 120, which includes staff for each event. And then this is the general site plan condition that I won't bore you with. And then that is it, because it's pretty straightforward. So I'm open to any questions that you may have.
Thank you. Any questions for Robin before we bring the applicant up? Paul?
Robin, in the quoting of the parking numbers, the 532 is inclusive of the entire amber area that you highlighted, correct?
Yes, correct, yes.
Okay. That's all the questions I have for right now.
Yeah.
Okay. If we will hear from those speaking in support. Tammy, do we have any public comment?
I have none submitted.
None? Okay.
Well,
Is the applicant going to submit a public comment? Can you submit a card? Ken, is that okay?
It is. I mean, this is the applicant in the
Okay.
actual zoning case. Technically, I'd like a comment card. You've addressed that, but I think they do
Okay.
need to be heard.
Great.
Robin, on the 532, is that based on 190 or 120?
That's not, that's based on the square footage of their overall.
So it's based on the square-
Nothing to do with the number.
Okay, nothing to do with that.
Mr. Orkin?
Good evening, Mayor, City Council. I'm Adam Orkin, Crabapple Market, 12650 Crabapple Road, Milton, Georgia, 30004.
Yeah.
Open for any questions, anything you want to ask?
Okay. Any questions for the applicant, or I'll close the public hearing?
I had a quick,
Okay.
No, go ahead.
quick question.
Okay.
For the outdoor space, did we have anything in there that talked about music or noise on the outdoor patio? I'm just thinking of the residents that are in the area that may have
We would
live
abide-
music on the patio.
Yeah,
to-
we would abide by whatever your codes are, which I think is no amplified music.
Perfect.
Adam, just to build on that, no amplified music outside, but have you considered whether or not you would have amplified music that would come from inside to be piped outside, or is your intention not to have any music outside at this point?
No, I could see a guitar player outside, but we don't have any speakers
But
outside.
not amplified?
Yeah.
Okay. Early in, this is a clarification, early in Robin's presentation, she said that it was your intention to abide by normal business hours. And I'm assuming those normal business hours are the numbers that she actually quoted later in the presentation, which was 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. Sunday through Thursday, 7 a.m. to 11 p.m. on Friday and Saturday. Is that a correct interpretation?
We're fine with that.
Okay. I'd like to go back to a conversation you and I had on Friday. Thank you for the invitation to come to the venue and have a chance to experience it firsthand. I would share with council, if you haven't had a chance to go, it's first rate. Adam has demonstrated to us repeatedly throughout his development that he builds a first-class product, and I think his intentions are nothing but the best with this. If I look, but let me now in contrast to the conversation we had, there was some concern expressed by the Planning Commission about the production of weddings in particular. And you and I talked about two different aspects of that. First was whether or not there should be weddings at all. You initially said you might be willing to support that. Then you corrected yourself and said, well, maybe two. Then our conversation went on further to say, well, maybe the two, but let's consider being able to jury other events that may include weddings. Is that a reasonable representation of our conversation?
Sure.
So in looking back at that, can you share your thoughts about weddings in general with the council so you arrest some of the concerns that were expressed by the Planning Commission?
Well, first of all, I support weddings, and I'm not sure why the planning staff or the Planning Commission wants to limit them. But we're abiding by all the rules. If I do something I'm not supposed to do, we've been here 12 years, and I don't think you guys have ever had to call us. Code enforcement has ever called us. With that said, I don't think we're going to have a lot of weddings. We had a lady that came to us, wanted to lease the whole space as a event facility to have weddings. We said, no, it's a little bit too heavy of a use. And she'll probably be back in front of y'all in the not too distant future. So I would like to not be held not to have weddings, because I have a dear friend of mine sitting in the back who would like to have a small wedding, and he actually lives 2 doors down or 3 doors down here. So, but our intention really isn't weddings.
So part of the conversation at one point was the fact that you would be willing to consider the possibility of a restricted number of weddings. Is that something that you would entertain in a discussion this evening? Do you have an idea of what's an appropriate restriction on that?
I have no idea.
Okay.
I mean, I think the event facility is going to be used more in the morning time. In the evening time, I've got restaurants all around. We do not want to cannibalize restaurants, although my parking count at night goes from shade from 4 to in the evening to over 7 per 1,000. So I'm almost double, or I am double my parking. But at the same time, this area is for families, the community. We've got the green, we've got the stage, we've got restaurants, and every once in a while there'll be evening events. And I would see that to be a wedding, but it's not going to be a everyday occurrence. What would be fair? Peyton, you're right next door. You're the one that would probably have the brunt of the noise.
I don't think you're going to have any weddings in the day, though. But I think to echo Paul's point, I personally don't have any issue with this. I think having a vibrant downtown is something that's good, and have a mix of uses is good. I think it's always been about the intensity of use, not so much actually whether you're having graduation parties, you're having 16th birthday parties. It's the amount of people you're going to have in there. I'm perfectly fine with 120. So whether or not it's weddings or it's parties, I'm personally fine with that.
Another quick question. For parking for the larger events, have any of the businesses there expressed concern about having or maybe requiring the larger events to solely use the parking garage to leave the spaces by the businesses open for patrons that are coming in and out?
Can you say that again?
Yes. So where like Peace Love Pizza and Nookies and all of that area, the parking that's there, have they expressed any concern about having larger events at the venue or maybe requiring those events to just solely use the parking garage to leave the spaces in that area open for
Well,
patrons?
we typically do. I can't always govern, but we typically leave that open because our first concern is to our restaurant tenants, our office tenants, all our existing tenants. So we're very cognizant on that. If we had a large event, we would probably push everybody over to the eastern parking lot, just like we do for concerts and different things like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
What is your perspective on the 190 versus the 120?
Well, it's technically, I think it's like 240. So my plan to build it, I think says 240, which is a high number. I don't know where the 190 came from, but we're perfectly happy at 120.
You good? All right. Thank you. Appreciate it.
All good? Thank you.
Mayor, real quick, I think you probably hit this when you asked for just, would ask to just ask for any opposition.
Absolutely. Any opposition? City
We
Clerk?
do not have any, Mayor.
Okay, so I will close the public hearing and open it for discussion. Or any other questions for staff?
So I want to just clarify about the noise issue. So the development standard requirement is no amplified sound permitted unless it is within a fully enclosed structure. I guess I get your point that it could be piped out, but I think the intent is obviously not to have that noise out on the patio.
So to clarify, though, the example that Mr. Orkin just gave, so would a non-amplified guitar on the patio be permitted by that or not permitted by that?
I mean, technically, yes, something that's not amplified would be allowed on the patio.
Yeah, I mean, non-amplified acoustic guitar, I can appreciate would not be an offensive introduction of sound.
Yeah. And I
They
just,
have those at the restaurants all over.
and then also just want to comment on the numbers. I looked at the certificate of occupancy and the maximum occupancy is at 193. So anyway, that's.
Yeah, well, I think
just
the applicant
FYI.
has already suggested he's willing to self-regulate at 120. If our motion or something tonight were to include something like that, it doesn't sound like we would be in opposition to what the opponent or what the applicant has suggested he can endure. I think he's offered self-regulation and has demonstrated in the past that he can abide by those things. As he said to me in the day we walked the site together, we all have his phone number. So if there's an issue that comes up, we can reach him. I was intending to go down a path about some sort of regulation about the number of weddings, but I've been struggling since I had that conversation, to be very frank, Adam, because I don't know that it's appropriate for us to say, gee, you can't have a wedding, but you can have a graduation party. Is the graduation party too big, too little, too loud, too quiet? I think it's just best that we hold you accountable as a responsible business person to regulate those things and just be a good citizen as you've demonstrated to us in the past.
Thank you. Anything else? Okay, I'll open it for a motion.
I have a motion. I'd like to make a motion, we approve agenda item number 22-161.
Second.
And is that with staff's recommended conditions?
Yes.
Does he need to repeat that?
Does not, the maker of the second agreed, it was with the.
You want me to add the staff
You're
condition?
saying, do you agree?
I agree.
Okay. So we have a motion from Councilmember Jacobus and a second from Councilmember Verhoff to approve agenda item number 22-161 with staff recommended conditions. Any discussion? All in
So can I-
favor?
I'm sorry,
Oh,
can I clarify
Yes.
on this in front of it? I have 190, so I was just stating what the planning commission was, so I would be
So
more
staff's
comfortable
recommended
if you call
conditions
out
is 190?
120.
Okay.
If that's, or not, one,
I
whatever one, I don't know which
I-
one you want.
I believe it's 120.
Okay,
It's 120,
Okay.
120 based on the.
right,
the
so I
applicant
just need a
said
number.
120.
Yeah, then, okay, that's fair. I can take that as an amendment to the motion. but The second needs to agree as well that that's acceptable.
The second agrees.
Okay. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That's unanimous.
Clear as a bell.
Thank you, Robin. Okay, well, we will move on to our next agenda item. Will the city clerk please sound it?
It's consideration of RZ 2204, a text amendment to prohibit outdoor storage in the Crabapple Form-Based Code, Article 19, Crabapple Form-Based Code. It's agenda item number 22162. Robin?
Okay. This always goes out on me here. Ugh. Okay, this is two text amendments that are exactly alike, both for Crabapple and Deerfield Form-Based Code. So the purpose and objective is to ensure the beautification of the Crabapple and Deerfield Form-Based Code commercial and retail areas. The objective of these text amendments is to codify the prohibition of the storage or sale of goods in parking lots or other areas outside of the interior or permanently sheltered portions of a building. So a little bit of background. At the March 22nd meeting, Community Zoning Information Meeting, there were no comments on the subject. At the Planning Commission, they unanimously recommended approval of the two text amendments at their April 27th meeting as presented by staff. So I don't know why it didn't come up, but you all, as a mayor and city council, heard this presented by myself at the last meeting, and it appeared that you were all in support of it. So somehow I wrote it in my computer, but it didn't come out. So historically, there have been some issues with placement of drop-off boxes for clothing or other items for charities and parking lots within the Deerfield Form-Based Code retail shopping area. There are prohibitions with traditional zoning districts such as C1, ONI, MIX, the Birmingham Crossroads. There currently are no prohibitions to this type of outdoor storage within the form-based codes. There are occasions when an administrative permit is issued for seasonal sales such as Christmas trees or fireworks, which would be permitted. So this is the actual text for both the Deerfield and Crabapple. Form-based code 3.2.9. It happens to be the same exact section. The storage of goods or sales of goods in parking lots and other areas outside of the interior or permanently sheltered portions of a building is prohibited except as expressly permitted in Chapter 64 zoning. So as I mentioned the slide before, such as Christmas tree sales or fireworks stands. And then A says the sale of goods displayed under sheltered portions of a building shall be brought inside the building prior to closing of the business. And this is an example of Twisted Thread where they're very good at having their merchandise outside and they bring it in at closing time. So that's really the intent of trying to keep the area the way we want it to be. So with that said, I'm open to any questions you all may have on the item, and these should be voted on two separate agenda items. So,
Thank you, Robin. Any public comment? Any public comment?
We do not, Mayor.
Okay, I'll close public comment. Paul?
So Robin, in the example that you showed the picture of, which was the,
in the beginning.
yeah, the, shoot, what's the name?
Goodwill box?
Yes, the Goodwill box.
Yeah.
So, and that's intended to show a violation of what we would like to
Correct,
move toward.
yes.
So what is the answer to that? Is Goodwill required then to monitor this?
Well, they would not be allowed to do it at all.
Okay. So a Goodwill collection spot where you can drop off today after hours, that goes away?
I mean, if it's unmanned and it's in a parking lot, no, you could not do that. So I know of Goodwill has a location by the Publix at Bethany Bend, and so people drop it off and they pick it up. So that's totally fine. But as far as a box just sitting out would not be permitted.
I know we've had problems in the past, not so much around here, but over by Highway 9, where we had the unmanned, and it never was Goodwill. It was other organizations, and people started to leave mattresses and all sorts of stuff, but we ended up cleaning that up. Actually, the city did it at one point for us because it was ridiculous. People decided that was where they could dump all their garbage. But I don't think we've had that problem. I think we've cleaned up most of that, and most of those boxes
I don't know if we have one in the Walmart parking lot at this point.
Types of companies,
Right.
and we end up having a hard time tracking them down and forcing them to clean up what's left behind.
And unfortunately, I think a lot of citizens think that's their area to clean out their garage.
Right. So that's kind of where I'm going, is in the instance where we now are suggesting this is not an appropriate, that activity historically is no longer appropriate. Who's responsible when something like that does happen? The business owner, where the items are placed out in front, either in violation or not to their knowledge? What happens in that scenario?
We usually notify the owner of the property and have them clean it up. But we have in the past, when it's gotten out of hand, have done it ourselves.
Okay.
So it's interesting this isn't a picture of our property in the city. That's another jurisdiction somewhere, but it was amazing. Probably in the last year, I saw about 8 to 10 jurisdictions, doing this exact same thing. So it's very common.
All right, thanks, Robin.
Okay.
I will open it for a motion. Anybody?
I make a motion, we approve agenda item number 22-162.
Second?
Okay, I have a motion from Councilmember Jacobus and a second from Councilmember Morg to approve agenda item number 22-162. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That's unanimous. Okay, the city clerk will please stay on the next item.
22-163, just the same thing.
Mayor, that next item is consideration of RZ 2205, a text amendment to prohibit outdoor storage in the Deerfield Form-Based Code, Article 20 Deerfield Form-Based Code. It's agenda item number 22-163, and Robin presented, but we need to vote
Any
separately.
public comment?
We do not,
All
Mayor.
right, we'll close it, open it for a motion.
Make a motion, Mr. Mayor, that we approve agenda item number 22-163.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion from Councilmember Morg and a second from Councilmember Moore to approve agenda item number 22-163. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? That's unanimous. Okay. So there are no items under unfinished business, and we'll move on to new business. Will the city clerk please sound the first item?
That item is consideration of the issuance of an alcohol beverage license to Matthias Restaurant LLC, doing business as Mondo Italian Kitchen, located at 14155 Highway 9 North, Suite 500 in Milton. It's agenda item number 22-187. Bernadette?
Good evening again. This is due again to a change in ownership for consumption on premises of beer, wine, and distilled spirits at Mondo Italian Kitchen on Highway 9.
Thank you. Any public comment?
We have none, Mayor.
Okay. Any questions for Bernadette? All right, we'll open it for a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion that we approve agenda item 22-187.
A second.
Okay, I have a motion from Councilmember Moore and a second from Councilmember Johnson to approve agenda item number 22-187. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That's unanimous.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any council reports? Any reports from anybody? Nope. Okay, we'll move on to Ms. Sarah Leaders.
All right, good evening, Mayor and Council. Let's start with the maintenance work measure numbers for the month of May. We had 9 service requests. Again, that's what comes in on the app, emails or phone calls for service related to requests within the right-of-way. From those, and in addition, we generated 105 work orders in the month of May, and 94 of those were completed. We had 4 emergency work orders in the month, and actually 3 of those occurred on the same day. We had a storm come through that knocked some tree limbs down in the roadway. So 3 of those were in early May associated with the storm event, and one was a traffic signal that we had to go out and repair. Our seasonal roadside mowing is underway. That's one time a month on our right-of-ways of our major roadways. So that is an underway program, and the trash is picked up on the side of the roads in preparation for that mowing. The Kingsley Estates, we are on the final step of the right-of-way abandonment for that neighborhood. I believe at the last meeting, the plat revisions were approved and those revised plats have been recorded. Our final step is to record our deed of abandonment, and that will be, again, to complete the privatization for that neighborhood. And then another department update. I'm excited to share that the Public Works Department is growing, and we've recently had these 2 new positions that were filled by 2 current employees. First of all, Josh Rogers, he was previously in community development as the land development inspector, and he's now come over to Public Works to be the infrastructure inspector. He brings a critical skill set to this new initiative position. This was a position that was in last year's budget to help with some of the capital projects and the T-SPLOS project inspection. And secondly is our environmental program manager. So Emily Groth joined the city Parks and Recreation Department in 2021. And with her passion for environment and the outdoors, she was really a great fit for this position of environmental program manager. This has been it was a position that was previously held by Teresa Stickles, and we recently revised the position and moved it over to Public Works to encompass everything environmental program-wise in the city. And Emily's actually here tonight, so I wanted her to come up and introduce herself. And I had this slide set up that talked about a few of these environmental programs, and she just wanted to share a little bit about a couple of these and about herself a little bit.
Good evening, Mayor and members of council. I am excited to join the Public Works team after over a year in Parks and Rec. I've enjoyed my time in the parks and working with the community programs, and I hope to leverage that citywide. Some of the programs that I'll be overseeing are here on the screen. A few that I wanted to highlight are Green Communities, which is a program that encourages local government to lessen their environmental impact through various projects and ordinances. We recently increased our bronze certification to silver, and I hope to go for gold. A few other important programs are recycling events, like paint, hazardous waste, and electronics. We've had a lot of good turnout with our residents at these events, and I know we're due for one in the upcoming months, so I'm excited to take the lead on that as well. And lastly, and most importantly, is the solid waste and recycling strategy. Both the comp plan and our residents call for a change and some better guidance on how we can handle our solid waste. So I'm excited to take the lead on that as well. And in doing all this, I hope to just drive Milton towards a more sustainable future. To me, sustainability is not park specific or departmental. It's in our backyards, it's in Milton, and it's region wide. And you can do environmental education for kids, like Earth Day events and activities, all the way up to water conservation and septic tank workshops for adults and homeowners. So I'm kind of excited to wear many hats and drive Milton towards a more sustainable and environmentally friendly future.
Thanks, Emily. I think Tom's going to miss you.
Yeah.
Sure. Congratulations.
Thank you, guys. Thanks.
We're very excited to have Emily on board and to get started on some of these initiatives and programs, and really felt like taking it at an environmental level rather than just sustainability or conservation, and just look at it from holistic approach has been good. So we're excited to get some things going with Emily. Just wanted to highlight the 3 contracts that were on the agenda tonight under consent, Public Works related. The first is the Crabapple area wayfinding signage refresh. David Bergmeyer, our facilities manager, worked on a couple different quotes on how to get this completed, and we landed at the best cost savings and value under the state contract. So that is to enhance the look and expand the lifespan of the decorative wooden signs in the Crabapple area. So that's 15 of the large vehicular wooden signs. There's 4 pedestrian signs and 3 informational signs. So that's what that agenda item was about. Next, the Freemanville, the Birmingham equestrian improvements. So that included the 2 locations for equestrian parking. The bottom right shows the 2 locations for that, first being at Birmingham Park and the second at Freemanville Birmingham Green Space. And then the third item was related to the Freemanville at Birmingham roundabout project. As Rob mentioned in the T-Splost highlight, that one is T-Splost funded, and we are in right-of-way acquisition, hopefully to bid this summer. And we recently got an update from Georgia DOT about the Birmingham Crossroads mini roundabout, which is the picture in the bottom middle. And that is pretty close to how the design has come out on that location. It is a completely mountable center island to accommodate trucks. It does have the raised islands on the approaches as well, but there is no landscaping in the middle. It's able to accommodate larger vehicles without having that center landscaped. So that is on schedule to bid this August. So that one is moving forward fairly quickly as well. So the timing of those 2 projects, as we'd hoped, will work well together. And then lastly, I wanted to end with some before and after pictures of a project I showed you at my last update, which is New Providence Road. It's between the 2 sections of the Woodwinds development. The top 2 pictures were just as construction was getting started, and we were able to put in a asphalt path that matches what was done along the Woodwinds development. And that came in at just under $100,000 for that 8-foot wide asphalt path connecting, again, about 650 feet to connect those 2 neighborhoods. We were able to do in-house design on that. There was no right-of-way acquisition. And then we bid and managed the construction and inspection of the project. So another successful public works project. And we've already heard some good comments from the residents that enjoy walking along that section of roadway. That is my updates for tonight, and I'll be happy to answer any other questions.
Any questions for Sarah?
Sarah, I wrote to you today. I don't know if you had a chance to see it. As you're contemplating the improvements at the 2 equestrian sites, both Birmingham Park and the Freemanville in Birmingham, the consent agenda included a reference to the lighting aspect of that. I've just asked that we take a serious look at contemplating not including lighting. I really believe that most of the equestrian community would probably plan to conduct their activities within the confines of the day where there is natural light. I think introducing lighting there would be inconsistent with the look and feel that we were trying to keep with that being a pasture land at Freemanville, and probably similarly same thing in Birmingham. And I think adding lighting actually would then potentially encourage earlier or later use of the park than might be naturally appropriate for getting horses unloaded, offloaded, and maybe back to their stable in the confines of a normal sunrise to sunset. So just food for thought on that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Maybe the equestrian committee could take a look at that.
I actually spoke to one of our illustrious members of council today who is a equestrian, and she had similar feelings about that. I'll let her express them herself, though.
All right, anything else for Sarah? Thank you, Sarah. Appreciate it. All right, with that, we will adjourn. I'll have a motion for adjournment.
Motion to adjourn.
Second. All right, Andre beat you. I have a motion from Councilmember Morrig and a second from Councilmember Verhoff to adjourn. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That's unanimous. Thank you.